Hi, my name is Bill Wilkening, and this is our house here up on the north side of Tucson. And at our house, we've got several different systems. We've got an active system that we're going to show you, which is a large tank. We've got a gray water system, and then we also have got several passive systems, which are just basins that are naturally in the ground. So my wife and I got started into rainwater harvesting about 8 years ago. And we got started using the 30-gallon trash cans. And we still use these today. We've got them placed out here in our front planter, just taking some water off of a very small portion of our roof. And both of these cans will fill up in about a ½ inch to a ½ inch worth of rain. And then the other thing we make sure that we do with these trash cans, because there's no screens on them and we're worried about mosquitoes, is after it rains and they fill up, we put the lids on. Okay, so this is our 865-gallon Bushman tank that we put in 2012. And there's a couple features about it that are kind of unusual. The first feature that makes it kind of unusual is the fact that we've elevated it so much. And we've done that for two reasons. One is we're trying to maintain some height so that then the water has some pressure to go and come out of the spigot down here. And then also it helps push the water into our backyard garden, which we'll show you later. The other reason we did this was because we hopefully are going to put in some additional tanks in the future, and we're going to connect these discharge lines up together. And we wanted to make sure that the tanks were sitting at the same level so that we didn't get all the overflow from the roof coming out of one tank, and then that way it maintains the capacity of the system. The other thing that this setup has, and you can see it behind me, is our first flush. And what that's doing is we tend to get a lot of dust on our roof, especially between like April and June. And that wants to wash off when we get typically those first heavy rains, hopefully with the monsoon, which didn't happen this year, unfortunately. And the reason we want to keep that dust out of the tank is one thing that we've found is that if the dust gets into your tank, we were doing a science fair project with one of our neighbors' daughter, and she found that if the dust gets into the tank, that dust starts to dissolve into the water and it raises your percent solids, dissolved solids, and that's not as good as just the pure rainwater for your garden. So coming out of our 865-gallon tank, we ran that underground line, and it's coming up right here. And so then one of the things we added in here around our garden is this 55-gallon drum. And what we're doing with this 55-gallon drum is using it to provide head pressure to our Oya balls. So this is what an Oya ball looks like. And what it is, it's about a 3-inch porous clay ball. And so then what happens is there's a tube of water that comes out of this drum and goes along, and then you connect the Oya ball into that tube. And then what happens is the pressure from the water in this drum will slowly ooze out of this ball. And so what we've found is each ball will put about 0.8 gallons per day of water out. And so if you put two of these guys together right next to something like a tomato plant or a broccoli plant or like kale, what you're able to do is supply it with a kind of a baseline of water. And that's enough water to use by a tomato plant during the winter months. So then what we're able to do is tune back our drip system such that we can cut back on the amount of water that we're using through a drip system. So the other thing that we've set up here too is we do a lot of watering by hand. So again, here's our line coming from our tank. And what we're doing is we got an open valve here that we can open and have water drain out of our tank. And then we put that into a container, and then we can go and hand water all of our potted plants here in the backyard. So this is the inside of our gray water system. So this is our new high efficiency washer that we've got. Every time we do a load, it's producing about 12 gallons of water. And what we've done is hook up the discharge hose from the washer to a three-way valve. We can either direct the water to go down into the sink, which is the old way that used to go out to our septic tank, or it will divert it outside to the gray water system. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the vacuum breaker on our outlet line of our gray water system. And that's important because what happens is as the washer goes into draining the tank between the wash cycle and the rinse cycle, you want to make sure that all the water gets out, but then when it starts to fill the tub again, you need to have this line break its vacuum. If not, it will just siphon out all the water out of the tank. So the second water harvesting feature that we've got here is a gray water system. So what we're doing is taking water that's being discharged from our washing machines and using it to irrigate some plants. So in this case, what we've got is a citrus tree that we've had here for a number of years. So if you look down, you can see the half-inch hose that's coming out of the ground, and then there's a valve on the end. These are what they call emitters. So this is where the water is being discharged into the basin that we've got surrounding the citrus tree. And one of the things that we found was we've had this tree, like I said, for a number of years, almost 30 years now. And when we first had it, we couldn't get any fruit off of it. And then we put our gray water system in, and all of a sudden we started getting fruit. And what we realized was we weren't watering our tree enough to have it produce fruit. So that's been one of the great benefits of having a gray water system. So besides the citrus tree that we are watering with our gray water, we found out from our calculations that we should have enough water to support 2 pomegranate trees. So these are 2 pomegranate trees that we planted. They're heritage pomegranates from Mission Gardens. And again, what you've got is you can see the emitter coming up out of the ground with the small valve. And that valve's really important when you're dealing with the pomegranates because they're going to go dormant during the winter time. And so what that allows us to do is shut the water off to the pomegranate trees so that we're not wasting it, and push more water down to the citrus tree, which is an evergreen tree. So we've talked about active systems, which are the tanks, and we've talked about gray water systems, which is when we get the water off of our laundry machine. But the other systems that we have here are what they call passive systems, and those are the basins. So this is an example of a basin that's in the front of our house. It feeds water that's collected off of our driveway into this basin. And so this driveway area is almost 1,100 square feet. So when we get a 1-inch rain on this surface, we're going to collect almost 600 gallons worth of water into this basin. And we've got some milkweeds growing in here. We got a new desert willow growing in here. And we've got a nice new ironwood tree growing in here. And one of the things you need to do with the native plants is you need to get them established. And so one thing that we do is we'll put a bucket near the new plant with a small hole in the bottom of it. And what that allows us to do is hand water these new plants by just taking a bucket of water, pouring it in the bucket, and then that water slowly drains out and will seep deep into the ground and water the new plant. Okay, so this is a second passive feature that we have here at the house, and I like to show this to people because it doesn't have these big features and stuff. It's actually a fairly subtle feature. And in this case, we had some area of our roof, again fairly small, that it really didn't make much sense to put in gutters to collect into a tank. So we just let the water come off of the roof, down onto the rock, and then what we've got along here where you can see kind of this white gravel is a very small little swale. And so what happens is the rainwater comes along here, and then there's a very small little basin right next to the ironwood tree. So that'll fill up first to help water the smaller ironwood tree. And then as more rain comes down, it eventually goes off and helps water our big ironwood trees next to the house. Okay, so one other addition that we put in recently was we expanded our patio here so that we had like a nice little dining area to come out to in the afternoon. And so we designed this such that it is sloped down to a basin that we put in our backyard, and then we filled this basin with native plants. And one of the other things that we did when we went to Desert Survivors to pick the plants out is we asked the people there what are good plants for desert tortoises, because we've got 3 desert tortoises, Guillermo, Sansa, and Ari, that are here, and hopefully you'll be able to see them when you come on the tour.